It started a year ago when we decided to make some changes inside our greenhouse by installing modular metal raised garden beds. We then filled these beds with materials that we could find at home, starting with a layer of cardboard, followed by rotted logs, twigs, unfinished compost, and brown leaves. This filled the bed about halfway through, and we added bags of organic soil mix and a final layer of finished compost. By mid-spring, we were ready for our first harvest. Cool-loving vegetables like lettuce, bok choy, spinach, cabbage, and radish are always the first vegetables to be planted in our garden, and they do really well during the cool season. By May, spaces begin to open up just in time for our summer plants. Timing is a really great way to expand the growing season. By having plants ready to replace another, we were able to continuously make use of every space available. We try not to harvest everything at once, but instead we slowly replace each plant with summer crop just like peppers. We also keep the seedlings in pots and transplant them when a space opens up. Closer to the end of May, the weather started to get really warm. But what we do is we always keep the greenhouse door open day and night, keeping the temperature low enough for the lettuce to thrive without bolting. By June, it was time to harvest the rest of the spinach and radish, leaving more space to plant. At this point, the spinach started to bolt and go to flower, and if we don't harvest the radish, it will start to do the same. The last of our cool season crop was cabbage. This took a little bit longer, but it was worth the wait. With food prices increasing each year, it's not a bad idea to start thinking about how you can grow your own food. I truly understand that the initial investment to buy soil, seeds, garden beds, pots, and amendments seems a lot at the beginning of a garden setup. But as the year progresses, the amount of food you're growing will increase and the cost to maintain a garden will definitely decrease. As an example, once we had everything set up, the following year we only purchased a few bags of compost. Instead of filling a new bed, we only top dress it with compost. And sometimes we do run out of compost from our own garden, and that's the reason why we have to buy a few bags. And when it comes to purchasing new seeds, we only purchase a couple of seed packets a year. We only purchase new varieties that we want to try, and the rest we seed save from what we grew in our garden. A lot of seeds can be saved from the garden, and that includes herbs, vegetables, and also flowers. And we also grow perennials, so some plants do come back year after year. And for the garden beds, we don't have to replace it, especially the metal raised bed. It will last us for many years. And like mentioned earlier, we don't have to replace the soil that's in it. That will stay for a long time as well. The only thing that we do is we naturally enrich our garden soil with plant materials at the end of the season, and all that is free. And when it comes to watering, we don't always use tap water. We do our best to collect rainwater. We installed rain barrels, so we use those as much as possible. And after a few years of experience, we no longer buy plant starts from nurseries. Instead, we start the seeds ourselves. Learning how to seed start really gave us the most value. And most of the seeds that we start were saved from the previous growing season. You can guarantee that you'll have food year after year just by learning how to seed save and seed start. The more you garden, the more you'll find ways to cut costs, and you'll get better at taking care of your garden, and you'll be able to grow much more than your first time growing. Additionally, for me and my family, it's more than just growing our own food. We get to go outside in the garden and be active. It's also our calming place, and we choose to invest our money in the garden for all its health benefits, both physically and mentally. By November, our outdoor gardening season came to an end. By this time, we put our garden beds to rest. We mainly chop and drop leaves and stems and allow them to decompose throughout winter. Without any source of heat, the peppers inside this greenhouse will not survive, but they can be overwintered indoors and can live up to 5 years. As much as we want to grow outdoors, our winter here is long and can be harsh at times. So we grow indoors instead and wait for spring to arrive and start it over again. And the only time I'm outside in the garden during winter is when I'm making sure to remove heavy snow from the top of the greenhouse to prevent it from collapsing. Now that the weather is slowly getting warmer again, I'm happy to be outside in the garden, and I get to plant our first sets of vegetables inside the greenhouse once again. But before I do that, the first task is to get the beds ready. I'm removing any leaves and stems that didn't fully break down, I'll transfer this over to the compost bin, which will eventually turn into plant food. These materials can also be used as mulch on top of small containers to keep them from drying out too fast. Everything in our garden is set up on drip irrigation, which saves us a lot of time and reduces our water usage. But during the first few weeks of spring, we prefer not to use tap water. Instead, we use water from a rain barrel, which contains nitrogen and essential minerals. The nutrients and minerals collected from the rain are essential to plant growth, which is perfect for young seedlings. After a quick cleanup, all I have to do is apply an inch layer of compost, and this is all I need to start feeding the young seedlings. It's also only the first week of April and there are still dangers of frost, so I'm only planting inside the greenhouse or garden beds with covers. The covers will protect young seedlings when night temperatures go below freezing. I should also mention that not every type of vegetables can be grown around this time. Vegetable plants that can handle low temperatures are best suited for early spring planting. Vegetables like lettuce, cabbage, mizuna, bok choy, and you can even seed start your radish will be able to handle low temperatures and some freezing nights. January is the first month that we seed start indoors. Peppers are usually the first one that we seed start since they require a long growth period. By March, we seed start cold crops, making sure that we have them growing big enough to transplant outdoors in April. This vegetable is called gailan, which is a Chinese sprouting broccoli. We started the seeds in February and they're at a really good size right now to go outdoors. This year I tried something new, so I ended up using a soil block method to start the gailan seeds. I'm really surprised that they had no problem growing in such a small cube of soil. The only tricky part with soil blocking method is that it requires a special mix of soil, compost, and perlite. You'll have to get the right amount so that the block will hold strong without crumbling and still allow the roots to move freely. Also, it needs to hold the shape when you water from the bottom. And to keep the seedlings healthy, I fed it with liquid fish fertilizer every 2 weeks. One of the main reasons why we chose to plant gailan this year is because it's a cut and come again type of plant. This vegetable is mainly harvested when the stems start to shoot up and is about to produce flowers. Just before the flower starts to open up, that's when we harvest it. The stems are usually tender and make a great stir-fry meal. When the stem is cut, new shoots will keep on growing. I space each plant about 6 inches apart. This is plenty of room for it to mature fully without overcrowding one another. We're also going to be harvesting this often, so it doesn't really require a lot of space to grow. When planting any type of brassica, you can actually bury the stems deep up to the first sets of true leaves. This method is very useful, especially if you have leggy seedlings. The buried stems won't actually grow roots and it will harden over time as the plant grows. And this same method can be done to any cabbages, broccoli, bok choy, cauliflower, lettuce, and even Napa cabbage. This Napa cabbage seedling is a great example. When I started this indoors, it grew very leggy. So I repotted it and buried the stems deep, and it's now looking much better and it'll be able to support new leaf growth. Mizuna is a great choice for early spring planting. It can handle fluctuations of weather, even hard frost. The leaves are great for salad and taste best during cool season. I'm growing this for larger leaves, so I'm spacing them about 8 inches apart. But for smaller leaves, plant them closer. Kohlrabi is another plant that do well when planted during cool season. It can tolerate mild frost. It's like a turnip that grows above ground with broccoli leaves on top. A bulb will form on the bottom and that's what we eat, but the leaves are also edible too. We also space this about 8 inches apart because the leaves will take up a lot of room to grow. One of our favorite to grow around this time is bok choy. They are fast growing and great for quick harvest. We don't even need to start these indoors. You can actually just plant the seeds directly. But we do like to start them indoors to give our seedlings a head start so that we can grow more during the season. For baby bok choy leaves, you can plant them a lot closer. For big bok choy heads, I plant them about 6 to 8 inches apart. For now, I'm going to leave the last half of the bed empty because I'm still deciding on what to grow in here. I'm thinking maybe I can add onions in here to fill the space, or maybe lettuce and spinach. I'm not really 100% sure on that yet, so I'm gonna come back in a couple of days to fill the gaps. Last fall, around end of October, we planted garlic in this bed. They went to dormancy during winter, and now that the soil started to warm up, they started to sprout. After planting the garlic last year, I also added a netting to prevent squirrels from digging them up during fall and winter season. I'm going to remove the netting now to allow sprouts to grow. This netting actually serves another purpose. It's also a shade netting which blocks about 50% UV light. For the time being, I'm going to place this on the top of the covered bed. This will block some of the sunlight so it won't get too hot in here because I will be starting cool loving vegetables. We designed these two beds with full cover so that we can extend our growing season. With the cover on it, it allows us to start very early in spring and keep our plants growing very late in fall. The doors are removable, and during the summer I switch it with a different sets of doors with netting instead of plastic. The netting on the doors will allow air to flow through while keeping the bugs away, and we mainly grow leafy greens in here or root vegetables. We try to avoid anything that requires pollination since there's a net barrier. Brown leaves is always very useful in the garden. Not only will they eventually break down and enrich the soil, they will also serve to keep the soil warm and prevent moisture loss. With any garden prep, I like to clean the leaves on top of the soil and reuse them again for later. Top dressing your soil with good compost will help seeds and seedlings off to a great start. It also helps to keep your soil healthy year after year. When it comes to gardening, having the right tool can make the work much easier. I like using simple tools, and I also like making my own unique tools. A couple of years ago, I built a garlic multi-dibber, which I also use for different purpose when it comes to seed sowing. And I know that everybody's got their own way to start seeds, and it's been a habit of mine to flatten the topsoil first. Afterwards, I then use the most cheapest and simplest tool in the garden, a stick. I usually just lay the stick flat and create a trench, and this trench is about an inch or less deep. Each trench marks a row of vegetable variety that I will be planting. I space each row about 10 to 12 inch apart. I'm more of a visual gardener, and this way of seed starting really helps me a lot. The next step is choosing the right seeds. A lot of the seeds that I'm starting today not only grow well together but also thrives on cold start. The soil temperature doesn't need to be extremely warm for these seeds to germinate. For the first row, I'm growing a pak choi variety called Bopak. I'm spacing each seedling about 2 inch apart. Then I'm planting Bloomsdale spinach, and these can be spaced about 1 to 2 inch apart. They can be thinned out later for bigger growth. These are coated romaine lettuce seeds, which helps with quick germination. I want to harvest full-size lettuce heads, so I'm spacing them about 8 to 10 inch apart. French breakfast radish doesn't require much room, and they're ready to be harvested within 30 days. Gold nugget carrots, I space them about 1 to 2 inch apart, and then thin out every other carrot later on. This is Ostergrass rosa radish, which looks more like a carrot but it has radish tops. It's a very interesting variety, and it's my first time trying this out. Then I also planted two different varieties of beets, cylinder and chioggia beets. I space each seeds about 1 to 2 inch apart. For larger beets, space them about 3 to 4 inch. Purple Prince turnip is something that we grow every year, and I also planted these about 1 to 2 inch apart. These don't actually mind being grown closely together, and I usually harvest the large turnips first and let the smaller ones continue to grow bigger. Lastly, I planted daikon radish, and these require more space. I spaced them about 3 to 4 inch apart to allow them to grow much bigger. With a trenching method like this, I lightly backfill the soil, making sure that I don't bury the seeds too deep. I also decided to top it off with a light layer of leaves to protect the seeds. I've done something similar like this in the past. As long as you put a light layer, the seedlings will still manage to push through the leaves. After planting the seeds, the most important thing that I will make sure to do is to keep the beds watered every other day. This will prevent the seeds from drying out and guarantee germination. Thanks for watching at Planted in the Garden. For more gardening information and tips, follow along.